and welcome to the Style Matters podcast. I'm Xandra, your host, and I am so glad you're here. If you're looking for ways to love your home, enhance its beauty, and above all, make it a place that both nurtures you and inspires you, then you're in the right place. On this show, I talk with the most thoughtful designers, stylists, and artists in the industry about why our environments have such a huge impact on our overall happiness and whether or not we go through our days uplifted or dragged down. I pick their brains for how they do what they do and how we can apply it to our own homes. I believe everyone deserves to have beauty in their lives, and if it's lacking in yours, or if you just can't get enough of gorgeous interiors, this show is for you. I'm so glad you found us. Before we get started, I want to let you know about a brand new masterclass I've created called The Number One Reason Your Home Doesn't Look and Feel the Way You Want It to, and how to fix it. In it, I'll talk about a different way of approaching your next project, whether it's big or small, using my slow style framework as our guide. You'll come away knowing all of the steps and skills you need to make sure you're happy with your results and that you're spending your money much more wisely, or even not spending at all, and the confidence to really lean into a style that truly represents who you are without worrying that you'll regret your choices. The best news, it's free. Go to littleyellowcouch.com and click on Masterclass at the top to sign up. This is a live workshop on Zoom, and I'm offering it 4 different times, all within the week of November 14th. So I will be staying on for Q&A to answer any and all of your questions, but you do have to sign up. Again, go to littleyellowcouch.com and click on Masterclass at the top of the homepage, and then you can pick the time that's right for you. I really hope to see you there. Okay, on to today's episode. My guest is author Hilary Robertson, talking with us about her newest book, Nomad at Home, Designing the Home More Traveled. Hilary is not only a much sought-after stylist for numerous brands, she is an addict when it comes to travel. She soaks up the materials, the emotions, the colors, the patterns of each new place she visits or moves to. And moving in for extended stays is the only way to really get the design juices flowing in her mind. What you'll see throughout this book are photos of homes where the line between the culture of a city or neighborhood and the interiors of private spaces is blurred to the point where you feel like the rooms of these design-obsessed owners have always been there, existing as a repository of memories over many, many years. The book is gorgeous, and Hilary is lovely. Here she is. Hilary Robertson, welcome to the Style Matters podcast.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Yes, it's a beautiful book. You are an immersive traveler is how I would describe you. And I think the book is for immersive travelers. For example, you really had me laughing in the intro when you're describing the lure of moving to a new country, right? And we all do this. We get this image in our minds, and you write about how you've already picked out your market basket and the dress you're going to wear, and where you're going to go shopping. Yeah, and we all do that, and I just think it's so true. So, what is it about traveling that creates these scenarios in our minds? And do you think we're all just longing for escape? Or do you think it's more about becoming someone new?
I think it could be a bit of both. I think it probably depends on your personality. I've got friends who only want to go for a week or 10 days. And I'm like, really? That's just not enough.
Right.
There really is nowhere that I go that I don't. I'm sure there's been a couple of places that I probably haven't liked, but I'm always picking up the property magazine or looking in the real estate window or whatever. I can't help myself.
Right.
And my husband's the same, luckily.
So digging a little deeper into that question of becoming someone new. I mean, what do you think for our own personal development that we get out of traveling? And how does that then kind of relate to what we bring home with us?
Well, for me, I really like to speak languages. Growing up in Europe, it's just easier, to be somewhere different within an hour and a half or 2 hours or
Right.
whatever. So, I grew up in the south of England. So going to France is easy peasy. The
Mm.
channel's only 20 miles across. So
Yeah.
that just felt very normal for me. And my parents were both academics. So we had long holidays. So we would travel was important to us as a family. So yeah, I mean, I think it was just like early training in a way. So that was how we lived. And I remember my father always, as soon as he arrived in France and had his first glass of red wine and pate and, baguette, he was like a happy man. So
You'd
I
become
remember
French over the course of 15 minutes. Yes.
we liked ourselves better when we traveled, maybe. I mean, that is
Mm.
also about not having the pressure of your normal life and whatever. I think it's also, you know, we we can sometimes you can extend the fantasy and it's doable. Sometimes it really isn't doable,
Mm.
if you're a design person, I think you can't help wanting to like soak up all the different things that you see in other countries. And for me, that's really exciting because I'm sort of fairly insatiable when it comes to style, looking at having new things to see. So yeah.
Right. And I mean, that really is, to me, that is who this book is for. It's for people who, when they travel, they are really paying attention to the colors, the patterns, the textures, the materials that they're coming across, the furniture, even like, what's on the walls, how the walls are made, and really soaking that up. And that's what your book illustrates so beautifully. I want to talk about materiality with you. Speaking of what goes on the walls.
Yes, sure.
Sort of
Yeah.
near the beginning of the book, you give us this primer on different types of surfaces, which I thought was really, really helpful, broadening our thinking about the options for our walls and our counters and our floors. And I think that we don't have a lot of, in America, it's mostly drywall, or
Yeah.
if it's an old home, it might be plaster.
Yeah, if you're lucky,
if you're
yeah,
lucky.
or there may be some wood paneling occasionally or
True,
whatever. Yeah,
true.
and in Europe, I'm used to that there being a lot more texture, but I think there is just ways of achieving it, and that's what I was trying to point out. That
Yeah.
the kind of finish of paint that you choose, or using a lime paint, or using the Roman clay, which is like a troweled on surface, which you can put over drywall. I mean, there are choices. It's not. It's not as if we're stuck with drywall. If you have drywall, you can do something to that. So
yeah, I think that's what was so great, was that it was sort of, you really were encouraging us and giving us the inspiration to try out some of these other techniques. And of course, you can hire someone to do it if you're not comfortable doing it yourself.
Absolutely, yeah.
Right. But what do you think that those kinds of walls do for a space? I mean, what does it really matter? I guess what difference does it?
I mean, I talk about this a lot. I'm always urging people to think about the envelope of the room that they live in, and think about the simplest things: the wall and the floor and the ceiling and the baseboard. All those things are going to contribute more than you imagine to the atmosphere, because really it's about the way the light is in a room. I mean, you can also do a lot by choosing good lighting, but obviously we'd like to have daylight, and the way that the daylight hits a lime paint wall or a plastered wall is just so much more poetic and romantic than
Yes.
than light hitting the drywall. I mean, it's not the end of the world, of course, but for me, that's what I'm looking for. That's the kind of detail that makes me happy. But it's really fundamental. I think if you get the envelope of the room right, then you can be very simple with everything else in it.
Yes. Oh, and the light is captured so beautifully in these photographs. And they definitely remind me of my time, both in Italy, but also in the Southwest, where I was most recently.
Oh yeah.
The adobe walls, they have that texture to them as
Gorgeous. Yeah,
well. Yeah.
absolutely. Adobe's stunning. These are completely modern and eco and better for the planet. There's so many arguments for using these kinds of paint.
That's a really good point. I'm glad you mentioned that as well. I want to talk a little bit about hotels.
Yeah,
This book is a lot about, like you said, living in places and really setting up a home in places. But there's also something to be said for paying attention to the details that we see when we're staying at a fabulous hotel. Um, can you give us some examples of what you pay attention to when you're in a hotel? And also in the book, you talk about sometimes staying at a hotel's illuminates what's missing in our own homes.
oh, definitely. I think you
Yeah,
can learn a lot about comfort. I'm always, looking under the sheet to see what the mattress is, or taking the pillowcase off because I want to know why that pillow was so good. Or,
right.
I'm a very obsessive sort of bed person. So 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 yeah, I love to know that stuff. And but also simple things like, oh yes, there's a really good reading that's just in the right place, and there's one for me and then one for my husband, and just simple stuff which I
Yes.
think just will make your experience better. Often when I'm choosing a hotel, I'm choosing probably somewhere on the smaller side, maybe family run with, vernacular architecture. And there's a hotel in Puglia that I love called Masseria Potenti, where I shot a big campaign for Sunbrella. This is a family run hotel, and they care enormously about your experience. It's very warm and attentive without, being interfering, but just getting to be in this astonishing space is transformative. It's a privilege to be in a beautiful space like that,
Yes.
and eating food that they've grown and wine that they make and all that stuff. You really feel the difference, I think. And
Yes.
a lot of the touches in the rooms are very simple. It's about the fabrics that they use and the way they've used the local antiques from, probably not from anywhere sort of very fancy, but you can achieve that feeling. Well, I think the architecture is doing a lot, but that's why I'm encouraging people to really think about texture and materials, because you can bring that home with you. You can do that at home.
And I think you're talking about quality, and it's not about being overly decorated or even fantastic, over the top with luxury, but really, really good bed linens. They go a long way to making your experience
Definitely, yeah.
wonderful.
I really love a high-low home where you find your balance between the luxury things that you want to save up for, and then the humbler things that are beautiful and work in the mix. I don't need a huge budget. I like parameters.
Parameters help. They really do. They help you be more creative, I think.
Definitely, absolutely.
Well, let's talk about some of these specific rooms. You feature a few homes that are in Morocco, which
Yeah.
is so full of, I mean, talk about color and depth and pattern, and it's sort of just a riot of for your senses. There's a home that it's got these deep, rich colors all over the place. But then there's at least one other home that's in
Yeah,
Morocco that's
there's
all very
her
neutral.
back.
So
Yeah.
tell us about that contrast and what you think that does for people's
Well,
experience.
Emery, who has the house that's all in shades of green and blue, and her house in Belgium is the same.
Okay.
She makes tile and paint and furniture. She's been doing this for many decades. Her house is like an incredible fantasy and
Yes.
very clever. She really dives into this whole color palette, but that's the color palette she uses everywhere. So that's exciting in many ways. But then, then there's Riyadh 42, which is very pared back and minimal and really just about the Riyadh architecture. And it's very just, they're very good at the essentials and not having any extras, but
Mm-hmm.
it's beautifully done. And then in the middle, there's Darkawa, which is sort of monochrome, but where Valerie Barkowski, she's a textile designer, and it is minimal in the color palette, so it's a little different.
And some people seem to want that pared down, very calm, open, breathing space, maybe because the Medinas and the streets and everything are so bustling, and they want a little oasis, but else just might absolutely embrace those colors and bring them all in. And I really like that contrast. So let's talk a little bit about where you live. Your beautiful home, your country home, is featured in the book. And what I loved was this rich assortment of texture. It was very warm. It's a neutral color palette in my mind, but it was the texture.
I have a little bit of blue. There's a little blue and a little kind of rough indigo, a little bit dusty pink, but very much, it is very neutral. But that house, it is all about texture. I mean, the schoolhouse is made of chestnut, the walls are chestnut, the floor's chestnut. And then it was extended. So the extension is white, painted wood. This whole house has amazing light. It's really just has the most magical light. And that's really often what will make the difference for me about a space that I love is when a space has magical light, then I'm in,
Do you try to see a space different times of day before you buy it?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, I have to ask, top 5 must-visit places for the design-led traveler, which is kind of how you describe yourself.
Yeah, I would say Copenhagen. Or Copenhagen or Stockholm or both. I think London's pretty great for design. Especially I like to go in the fall when they have the design shows, which sort of travel from one city to another. I would highly recommend that if that's what you like. Yes. Paris is amazing. I love to go to Paris. Milan is incredible. Just soak up the stuff outside and your head will be exploding.
From your perspective, you've traveled the world. You've lived many places. You've seen so much. Why does style matter?
It sort of makes every day more beautiful, and it's really up to you what style means to you. It's an individual thing. For me, beauty just makes life better. Everything from the light to gathering some branches. It doesn't have to be. You can't always have the perfect space, or who wants perfect anyway.
Right. Who wants perfect, right?
But style is just how you live your life, the choices you make in your day, I think.
Thank you so much. It's been really fun talking with you.
Yeah, lovely. Thank you so much.
Okay, I hope that was helpful and inspiring. Don't forget to sign up for the upcoming free masterclass. You have 4 times to choose from on November 15, 16, and 17. Just go to littleyellowcouch.com and click on Masterclass at the top to sign up. And also at littleyellowcouch.com, you'll find the show notes for all of our episodes, where you'll find photos and links and my own thoughts on what we're talking about here on Style Matters. Have a great week. Bye for now.